Chapter 2902. At night, Bailey Hongzhuang stayed by Di Beichun's bedside, deep in thought. Beichun, it's because everyone is so considerate of us that I can't let them take this risk. I believe that if you were awake, your thoughts would be the same as mine. Bailey Hongzhuang muttered to herself. She didn't think that things would turn out like this. However, no matter how bleak the future was, at least there was still a glimmer of hope. She believed that there would always be a way out. Since Penglai Island lowered the entry standards for cultivators who had inherited the blood aura, it meant that people who were at the first level of the Purple Realm could survive on Penglai Island. Everything would go right when it came to it. How would she know the real situation if she didn't see it for herself? Back then, when she found out about her background, she also felt immense pressure. It was like an impossible task. But now, she had completed it one by one. She believed that she would be able to do it this time. Master. The three beasties appeared in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. They knew that Bailey Hongzhuang was very sad. Now, they all looked sad and were not as lively as they usually were. No matter what choice you make, we will support you. The three beasties looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with shining eyes. Di Beichun was unconscious. At least they were by Master's side. Isn't it just Penglai Island? We will definitely be able to conquer it, Xiao He said with lofty sentiments. Xiao Bai nodded. This place is also a place of opportunity. Maybe the situation isn't as bad as we think. There's still a chance. What are you afraid of? So many people can go. With Master's strength and the cooperation of the three of us, there's still hope. White Lion was still fearless. In any case, it felt that its master was the most powerful, and everyone else had to step aside. Looking at the three beasties who were trying their best to comfort her, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. She reached out her hand and patted the three furry little guys. Fortunately, these three little fellows had always been unwavering in their support. In fact, she was not a reckless person. Although she was only at the second level of the Purple Realm, there was still a large gap between her and a fifth-level Purple Realm cultivator. However, she had the existence of the blood aura field. Moreover, she had been cultivating in the desert world for such a long time. Her combat strength had also improved greatly. The strength of the three beasties had also increased by a step. Once they joined forces, even if they were to encounter a cultivator at the fifth level of the Purple Realm, they might still have a chance of winning. It seems that you all already know my plan, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. The three beasts nodded in unison. What are you afraid of? Take responsibility for your own problems. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. You're right. What's there to be afraid of? Ever since her previous life, when had she ever been afraid? Master, is the seed of the sacred frost lotus really useful to Di Beichun? Xiao He's eyes flashed with doubt. The sacred frost lotus was indeed a treasure, but for Di Beichun's current condition, it really wasn't sure if it was useful. Treating the symptoms, but not the root cause. The sacred frost lotus has a wide range of effects. As long as it's an illness, it will have a certain effect. However, it still can't change Beichun's body constitution. Chapter 2903. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the unconscious Di Beichun. She could only hope that the effects of the sacred ice lotus would be outstanding enough to wake Di Beichun up. She had only met one person with the cursed body in the past, and did not have much experience. Furthermore, Di Beichun's cursed body was far purer than the person she had met in her previous life. Therefore, the effects were even more difficult to determine. However, as long as there was a glimmer of hope, she would not give up. In the next second, Bailey Hongzhuang fed the sacred ice lotus seed into Di Beichun's mouth. The sparkling lotus seed melted in his mouth and turned into pure energy once it entered Di Beichun's mouth. It flowed into his limbs and bones. Bailey Hongzhuang stayed by Di Beichun's side and observed his changes. However, Di Beichun's eyes were still tightly shut and there were no changes. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart, which was originally full of expectations, could not help but gradually sink. Could it be that this cursed body was so terrifying that even the sacred ice lotus could not change it in the slightest? The three beasts were also standing by Di Beichun's bed. After noticing this change, they could not help but reveal a look of disappointment. They did not expect this to be the result. Bailey Hongzhuang was in a daze when she heard a gentle and familiar voice calling out to her. "Wife!" It was Di Beichen's voice. She felt a warm touch on her cheeks, as if Di Beichen was caressing her cheeks. Bailey Hongzhuang's consciousness gradually woke up. After realizing that she had such a dream, she did not want to open her eyes. She only wanted to sink into this dream for a while longer. Tears could not help but fall from the corners of her eyes. She really hoped that Di Beichen could still be by her side and gently call out to her wife. Unfortunately, Di Beichen had fallen into a coma. If she couldn't find those 2 medicinal herbs, she might never be able to hear such sounds again or feel such sensations in the future. "Wife, what's wrong?" The gentle voice was a little hoarse, but more than that, it was filled with concern and heartache. Bailey Hongzhuang felt the warm hand wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. Such a familiar and real feeling made her feel blessed. However, this feeling seemed a little too real. "Master, Di Beichen is awake." After waking up, the 3 beasties could not help but look at Di Beichen in surprise. They had waited for Di Beichen the entire night and did not see any reaction from Di Beichen. They did not expect to see Di Beichen wake up as soon as they opened their eyes. This was really a pleasant surprise. Bailey Hongzhuang originally felt that this feeling was too real. She was only afraid that she would not be able to feel this feeling after waking up, so she was unwilling to open her eyes. At this moment, when she heard the 3 beasties' words, she could not help but open her eyes. She saw that Di Beichen, who had been sleeping all this time, had unknowingly sat up and was looking at her with a face full of heartache. "Wife, don't cry." Bailey Hongzhuang stared blankly at the figure in front of her. This handsome and familiar face was the one she had been thinking about day and night. He had really woken up. "Beichen, you're awake." Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a light of excitement. Her entire being was abnormally excited. Di Beichen nodded and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a gaze full of heartache. "Yes, I'm awake." Chapter 2904. As soon as Di Beichen opened his eyes, he saw Bailey Hongzhuang sleeping tiredly by the side of the bed. He could not remember what had happened. He only remembered that he had been talking to Yulin Feng. However, he did not know why, but when he woke up again, he was already lying on the bed. He could see the fatigue on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. He thought that his coma this time must have made Bailey Hongzhuang extremely worried. Earlier, Bailey Hongzhuang had been very worried about his physical condition. This time, his cursed body had acted up. It was easy to imagine how worried Bailey Hongzhuang was. However, he did not expect that just by calling out to her, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes began to tear. Her aggrieved and frightened look was clearly displayed even in her sleep. Di Beichen only felt a deep pain in his heart. He had actually made Hongzhuang so sad. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichen with teary eyes. She was afraid that everything in front of her was an illusion, an illusion. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang pulled her into her arms and felt the warmth and reality of the hug, as well as the strong arms, she could not help but lean on Di Beichen's shoulder to vent her emotions. She was so afraid that Di Beichen would never wake up again. Although she had been pretending to be strong on the surface, her entire person had been like a string that was about to collapse. She did not dare to think about the consequences of failure. Therefore, she had been comforting herself that she would not fail. However, in the depths of her heart, there was a reality that reminded her. Once she failed, it would be completely over. Di Beichen felt the clothes on his shoulders gradually becoming softer. He hugged Bailey Hongzhuang tightly and gently patted Bailey Hongzhuang's back with his right hand. He didn't know how long he had slept, but judging from Hongzhuang's behavior, he could tell that it wasn't a short time. Otherwise, Hongzhuang wouldn't be so panicked. "Wife, I will always be by your side. Don't be afraid." Di Beichen spoke softly to calm Bailey Hongzhuang down. As he fell into a coma, he only felt that he was in darkness. He could vaguely hear Bailey Hongzhuang's voice, and it was this voice that made him unwilling to immerse himself in the darkness, so he had been working hard to walk out of the darkness. However, the darkness was too deep, and it was not easy to walk out. Even though he had done his best, there was still a force shackling him, preventing him from breaking through the darkness. It wasn't until an ice-cold energy appeared in his body that he broke through the darkness. After a moment, Bailey Hongzhuang finally calmed down. She looked at Di Beichun with her red and swollen eyes, but her eyes were unusually bright. No matter what, Di Beichun had woken up. This was the happiest thing for her. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's red and swollen eyes, Di Beichun's eyes were filled with tenderness. This Hongzhuang really made his heart ache. In the next second, Di Beichun kissed Bailey Hongzhuang's red lips. Just like how Bailey Hongzhuang was afraid of losing him, how could he not be afraid of never seeing Bailey Hongzhuang again? Seeing this, the three beasts tactfully chose to leave. Ever since their master and Di Beichun got married, they had already gotten used to it. After a moment, Di Beichun released Bailey Hongzhuang and said, "Don't cry anymore. My heart aches when I see you." Chapter 2905. Under Di Beichun's burning gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang blushed and said, "Let me take your pulse and see how you're doing." Although Di Beichun had woken up, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but worry after a moment of joy. Although the effect of the sacred ice lotus was good, she wasn't sure how much of an effect it would have on Di Beichun's cursed body. If it only allowed Di Beichun to wake up temporarily, then the situation would undoubtedly be very bad. Di Beichun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who had her head lowered, and a trace of seriousness flashed through his deep eyes. He naturally did not want to leave Bailey Hongzhuang, but even he was unable to determine his own constitution. He really hoped that he did not have the cursed body. Then there would not be so many problems. He was more worried that if the results were not good, Hongzhuang would not be able to take it. For a moment, the room fell silent. Only the soft breathing of the two could be heard. Neither of them wanted the other to find out about their worries, so they were both hiding it from each other. Bailey Hongzhuang's hand trembled as she took Di Beichun's pulse. However, as she checked Di Beichun's pulse, the sadness in her eyes gradually dissipated. "Beichun, the condition of your cursed body has been suppressed. It has regressed a lot." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun in pleasant surprise. This was undoubtedly excellent news. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichun also smiled. "In that case, we don't have to worry about it flaring up in the short term?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "It won't flare up for at least a year or two. I can't be sure about the situation after that. However, this will give us at least a year or two to find the herbs." The cursed body was an extremely powerful constitution. As for the heavenly mandate body, it was a constitution that all cultivators dreamed of. Suppressing the cursed body was an extremely difficult task. It was because of this that Bailey Hongzhuang had felt so hopeless before. The effects of the sacred frost lotus were much better than Bailey Hongzhuang had expected. In a year or two, they might really have hope. Di Beichun's face could not help but reveal a smile. Not to mention whether or not he would be able to find the two herbs in these 2 years. At least he could spend such a long time with Bailey Hongzhuang. This was already a blessing. "Beichun, do you know Penglai Island?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Di Beichun. She had originally planned to put Di Beichun in the Chaos Ring and head to Penglai Island. Now that Di Beichun had woken up, this was undoubtedly the best. Di Beichun raised his eyebrows and shook his head. "What is that place?" Bailey Hongzhuang was not surprised that Di Beichun did not know about it. Thinking about it, they should only know about it after breaking through to the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly told Di Beichun about the information they obtained from the medicine sect and the existence of Penglai Island. After hearing all this, Di Beichun was also stunned. "I never thought that there would be such a place in the Shangxian continent. We have already collected the Amethyst Dragon Emperor Ginseng and the Tears of Frigid Flame, so our only chance is to go to Penglai Island." Chapter 2906. Grandfather, father, and master plan to go to Penglai Island to look for medicinal herbs for us after knowing about this. However, there are many masters on Penglai Island. It can be said that danger and opportunity coexist. I think grandfather and the others have known about the existence of Penglai Island for a long time, but they have never thought of going there. This has already explained a lot. As Bailey Hongshuang's voice fell, Di Beichen immediately understood Bailey Hongshuang's meaning. So, if I didn't wake up today, you plan to go there alone? Bailey Hongshuang shook her head and smiled. I plan to take you with me. Originally, she also wanted to let Di Beichen stay here. However, among everyone, she knew Di Beichen's physical condition the best. If something happened while she was away, all the doctors would be helpless. Therefore, only she and Di Beichen could go together. No matter what happened to Di Beichen's condition, she could think of a way. Di Beichen stretched out his hand and flicked Bailey Hongshuang's eyebrows. His face was full of blame. You silly girl. However, when he said this, he was full of heartache. Bailey Hongshuang's plan was to risk her life for him. With the cultivation of Situ Yin and the others, they had to be careful when going to Penglai Island, let alone Bailey Hongshuang going there alone. Bailey Hongshuang naturally heard the heartache in Di Beichen's words. In the eyes of others, her idea was indeed a bit crazy and full of danger. However, she knew very well that it was all worth it. Fortunately, you have woken up now. Bailey Hongshuang blinked and smiled. You are right. We can't let everyone take risks for my condition. Why don't you let me go to Penglai Island this time? If I can come back, it will undoubtedly be best. If I don't come back, you will forget me. Di Beichen held Bailey Hongshuang's small hand. His dark and deep eyes flashed with a trace of sadness and determination. Since the land of Penglai was full of danger, he would let him explore it himself. Anyway, he only had 1 or 2 years left. If he died, it would be no pity. Listening to Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongshuang's face immediately changed. What nonsense are you talking about? If you want to go, we should go together. Wife, listen to me. Di Beichen's voice. This was the best way at present. However, Bailey Hongshuang did not give Di Beichen a chance to speak. I won't listen. If you want to go, then let's go together. If you want to go alone, I promise I'll go with you. Instead of this, it is better for us to go together. At least we can take care of each other. Bailey Hongshuang's attitude was unusually firm. She had encountered many dangers along the way, but Di Beichen had always been by her side. Now that Di Beichen was in danger, but she had to wait here. That was absolutely unacceptable. Seeing that Bailey Hongshuang's attitude was so firm, Di Beichen could not help but frown. He said, Wife, I don't want you to be in danger. Do you think I want you to be in danger? Bailey Hongshuang asked. Di Beichen was speechless for a moment. Thinking about it, if he stood in Hongshuang's position, he would definitely not agree. Chapter 2907. What a person seeks in life is not a long life. If you're no longer here, then what's the point of me living alone? Bailey Hongshuang seriously looked at Di Beichen. She had never thought that there would be a day when she would have to leave Di Beichen. If Di Beichen wasn't in her life, then there was no point in her living. So what if her lifespan was long? Just like when her grandfather was searching for her grandmother, how could he have been happy during those dozens of years? At least, her grandfather still had a trace of hope in his heart at that time. If he didn't even have this trace of hope, then he would truly be a walking corpse. Di Beichen, who originally wanted to persuade Bailey Hongshuang, fell into silence after hearing her words. Perhaps Bailey Hongshuang was right. He didn't want Bailey Hongshuang to be in any danger, but if he did, then Bailey Hongshuang would be even more unhappy. Thinking of this, Di Beichen couldn't help but reach out and pull Bailey Hongshuang into his embrace. With a wife like this, what more could a husband ask for? Let's go together. Di Beichen's voice was low and hoarse, but it was filled with joy and determination. He believed that they would definitely find those 2 medicinal ingredients because he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Bailey Hongshuang. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongshuang finally relaxed and revealed a smile. We can't spread the news that we're going to Penglai Island. Otherwise, Father and the others will definitely stop us. Bailey Hongshuang turned to Di Beichen. Lan Yinxiao and the others were probably feeling the same. If they told them, they would definitely go themselves. Then we can only lie. Di Beichen and Bailey Hongshuang looked at each other and revealed a tacit smile. It seemed like they had the same idea. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun walked out of the room together, Mu Lingbing and the others were pleasantly surprised to see that Di Beichun was safe and sound. Beichun, you've already woken up. Di Beichun faintly smiled with an apologetic expression. I was unconscious and made everyone worry. Lan Yunxiao and the others sighed in relief. Whether it was Di Beichun or Bailey Hongzhuang, they were extremely worried. Now that Di Beichun had woken up, most likely the sacred frost lotus. Yishuan, how is Beichun right now? Mu Lingbing couldn't help but ask. The sacred frost lotus is very effective. It has temporarily suppressed the problem of his cursed physique. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Situ Yin nodded. Then we can be at ease. At least Beichun won't have any problems for the time being, right? We'll prepare to head to Penglai Island in a few days and try to bring back those 2 medicinal ingredients as soon as possible. After making this decision yesterday, Situ Yin and the others began to make preparations. Penglai Island wasn't like this place. If they wanted to go, they had to be fully prepared. Otherwise, the slightest carelessness could lead to danger. Moreover, the items sold at Penglai Island's auction house were definitely extremely valuable. If they wanted to bid for those 2 medicinal ingredients, they would naturally need to prepare a lot of money. After all, with their cultivation, it would be very difficult to rob on Penglai Island. Chapter 2908. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng also revealed smiles. Don't worry, no matter what, we will definitely find that medicinal ingredient. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun couldn't help but look at each other. Although they already knew of Si Tuyin's plan, they still couldn't help but feel a wave of warmth in their hearts. Grandfather, Beichun's constitution has already been suppressed. There won't be any problems for at least 10 years, so I discussed it with Beichun. For now, there's no need to rush to Penglai Island. Since there's still a long time, why don't we wait until our strength reaches a certain level before going? That way, we'll have more confidence. Moreover, we also want to experience the demonic cultivation abyss. If we're lucky, we might even be able to obtain the inheritance of the murderous aura. Bailey Hongzhuang told the story that she and Di Beichun had already discussed. Only then would everyone believe it. Si Tuyin's group, who had already made up their minds, couldn't help but be startled. There won't be any problems for at least 10 years. The sacred frost lotus already has the effect of reviving the dead. Although it's not specifically used to change Beichun's constitution, the effect is still very good. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been so worried. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was filled with joy as she sighed her heart. Although she had thought about the sacred frost lotus before, she felt that the 2 weren't the right medicine for the illness. Yesterday, she had also tried it out with the idea of treating a dead horse as if it were still alive. However, the effect was clearly much better than she had imagined. Si Tuyin's group looked at each other and fell into deep thought. The sacred frost lotus had the effect of reviving the dead. As long as one didn't completely lose their life, using the sacred frost lotus could bring them back to life. Thus, when they heard Bailey Hongzhuang say that it had such an effect, no one doubted it. If there really is 10 years, then it's better to cultivate for a few years before going. That way, our chances of success will be greater, Mu Jin slowly said. Although Si Tuyin's group of 3 had already reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm, they would only be the most ordinary existence in Penglai Island. There would be many accidents. If he had a few more years, his chances of winning would be much higher. Nan Gongwu followed up and said, "That's right, 10 years is enough. Why don't we wait for your strength to increase by 2 levels? This way, we can be more prepared. Why don't we make this decision?" Mu Lingbing's face was beaming with joy. Her originally tense mood had completely relaxed today. In truth, when Lan Yunxiao's group decided to head to Penglai Island, they were also very worried. However, Di Beichun's cursed physique was too serious, so they had no other choice. However, now that they had 10 years, they could make more preparations. Situ Yin and the other 2 pondered for a moment before they nodded. Since that's the case, let's go after we're more prepared. Situ Yin nodded. Let's take advantage of this period of time to improve our cultivation. It's also a good opportunity to understand more about the situation on Penglai Island. Then let's find out more about the situation and make a plan before we go. Chapter 2909. Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichan relaxed when they saw that Lan Yunxiao and the others had changed their minds after hearing the news. The originally tense atmosphere dissipated just like that. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief, and everything returned to normal. After making their plans, Bailey Hongzhuang and Deep Beichan weren't in a hurry to leave. They only knew of Penglai Island's existence, but didn't have any understanding of it. They didn't even know the route to get there. Thus, they had to understand everything clearly before they set off. Lan Yunxiao and the others didn't put this matter aside because of the 10 years that had passed. Instead, they went everywhere to inquire about Penglai Island. If it was an ordinary person, it would be impossible for them to inquire about Penglai Island. However, with Lan Yunxiao and the others' status, it wasn't a problem to inquire about it. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan were very interested in this matter, Lan Yunxiao and the others didn't hide any information and told them everything they knew. In their opinion, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan were originally geniuses and had also obtained the inheritance of the Bloodgrave Abyss. It was very normal for them to want to know about the Devil Cultivation Abyss. Once their cultivation reached a certain level, it wouldn't be a bad thing for them to wander around Penglai Island. To Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng, going to Penglai Island wasn't necessarily a bad thing either. However, Lan Yunxiao and Mu Lingbing had just broken free from their previous torment with great difficulty and enjoyed a short period of time. For the time being, they didn't have any plans to go. Moreover, the Lan family had just fallen into Lan Yunxiao's hands, so it wasn't suitable for him to leave. During this process, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan's understanding of Penglai Island gradually deepened. Moreover, their usual behavior didn't arouse the slightest bit of suspicion. Not long after when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying returned to the Cloud Sword sect, they heard the news that Di Beichan had awakened and immediately rushed over. After seeing that Di Beichan had woken up, Xiren's face couldn't help but reveal a big smile. He stretched out his hand and punched Di Beichan. "Good lad. I knew that you were blessed and would never fall just like that." Although he said that, when Xiren's eyes were slightly red. Di Beichan was his only brother, yet something like this had happened to him. Previously, he had been extremely worried. Fortunately, Di Beichan had already woken up. Hearing this, Di Beichan chuckled. "That's natural. Since I was a child, when have I not been lucky? Beichan, it's great that you've woken up. You've really made us worried to death." Shangwan Yingying breathed a sigh of relief. Previously, when Di Beichan had fallen into a coma, Xiren's mood had been terrible to the extreme. However, they could only worry helplessly and couldn't do anything. "When I came here earlier, I already heard that the Sacred Frost Lotus has suppressed your physique. There won't be any problems for the next 10 years? When Xiren couldn't help but ask. This news was much better than what they had imagined. Di Beichan nodded. "That's natural. Wait until our strength increases a little more. Then we'll prepare to head to Penglai Island. If you're interested, you can come along." Seeing Di Beichan make such an unrestrained joke, Xiren completely relaxed. Chapter 2910. Taking advantage of this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang began to refine the rejuvenation pill. She had promised to give the medicine sect a rejuvenation pill so naturally, she had to keep her promise. Even though Gu Weisheng had said that there was no rush, she would be leaving soon. Before that, she had to give the pill to the medicine sect to prevent people from gossiping. In fact, Bailey Hongzhuang had entered the primordial chaos ring to refine pills every night. They were about to leave for Penglai Island. Along the way, they might encounter various dangers. This pill was definitely the most important thing to prepare. Most importantly, if they wanted to obtain the 2 medicinal herbs from the auction house, they would have to pay a hefty price. Even though Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichan were not poor people, it was obvious that there would not be any poor people in a place like Penglai Island. With their current net worth, it was probably not enough. Furthermore, they could not earn money legitimately. All they could do was refine more pills and hope that they could use them to exchange for medicinal herbs when the time comes. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun carried out all of this in a low-key manner. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's behavior was extremely normal. Hence, no one knew what they were thinking. Beichun, we will be leaving tomorrow. However, Xiren and the rest are still here. I'm really sorry. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. After Di Beichun's coma, she finally understood the brotherly relationship between Di Beichun and Xiren. This time, Xiren had stayed in Limitless Palace for a few days because he wanted to see his own brother more. They had grown up together. However, as they gradually grew older, they did not have much time to spend together. Both of them had to stay in their own sections. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Beichun's eyes lit up. Even though he and Xiren were not blood brothers, they were closer than blood brothers. It's fine. I'll go have a drink with Xiren tonight. As long as we can return safely, it's just that we won't be able to meet for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. As Di Beichun's wife, she was very happy to see that he had such a good brother. That night, Di Beichun and when Xiren drank to their heart's content. The two of them drank and chatted since they were young. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying watched the two of them with a smile. Shangwan Yingying was also a very easy person to get along with. She had followed Di Beichun and when Xiren since she was young. Previously, she and Xiren had the same idea. They only hoped that Di Beichun could find a good match for himself. Therefore, when Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, the two of them were very good to Bailey Hongzhuang. Under such circumstances, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying's friendship was quickly established. Even though it could not compare to their 20 years of relationship, it was still very good. The next day, before dawn, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun left a letter in the palace and prepared to leave. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the palace that was specially built for her. Her eyes flashed with a complicated and nostalgic light. She hoped that in the future, she would be able to come back here again and reunite with her family. Di Beichun gently patted Bailey Hongzhuang's shoulder and said, "We will definitely come back." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded gently. When she raised her head to look at Di Beichun, there was a bright smile on her face. Let's go. Chapter 29:11. The two of them quietly left through the back door of Limitless Palace. Once they left through the front door, they would definitely be noticed by the other disciples. However, only they would use the back door. In order not to alarm everyone, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's footsteps were very light. Soon, they disappeared through the back door of Limitless Palace. The next time I come back, I hope that everything will be better. Bailey Hongzhuang felt very regretful that she couldn't personally say goodbye to her parents. However, she didn't regret her choice. She only hoped that her parents wouldn't be too sad because of this. We definitely will. Di Beichun's eyes flashed with a firm and persistent light as he said in a deep voice. However, when Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun were halfway up the mountain, two figures suddenly appeared in front of them. It was obvious that they were waiting for them. Seeing these two figures, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's eyes couldn't help but flash with a hint of astonishment. Xiren, Ying, why are you guys here? Di Beichun looked at the two people in front of him in astonishment. This scene was really beyond his expectations. After Xiren saw Di Beichun and Ying, he also sighed and said, "I knew that the situation wasn't as good as you said. The so-called 10 years of not acting up should be a lie." When these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's complexion changed. They thought that they had deceived everyone. They didn't expect that Xiren actually saw through everything. Although the two's expression didn't change much, it still didn't escape Xiren's eyes. He couldn't help but say, "Don't hide it from me. We've been brothers for so many years. How can I not know what kind of plan you have in mind?" Saying these words is just to let everyone relax. If the cold ice sacred lotus really has such a good effect, Hongzhuang wouldn't have been so anxious when you were unconscious. Everyone knew how outstanding Bailey Hongzhuang's medical skills were. Bailey Hongzhuang definitely wouldn't ignore the cold ice sacred lotus. However, she didn't use it before. This meant that Bailey Hongzhuang believed that the cold ice sacred lotus wouldn't be able to achieve a good effect. If his guess wasn't wrong, Bailey Hongzhuang must have been at her wit's end when she was at her wit's end. Last night, when Di Beichun drank with him, his feeling was even more obvious. In the past, Di Beichun rarely took the initiative to drink with him. This unusual style was very much like saying goodbye. Therefore, early in the morning, he and Shangwan Yingying waited at the back of the mountain. If Di Beichun and Shangwan Yingying hadn't left, it would undoubtedly be for the best. But now, it seemed that the situation was exactly as he thought. Hearing Xiren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun couldn't help but look at each other. A trace of helplessness appeared on their faces at the same time. Since you've seen through everything, then I won't hide it anymore. We are indeed going to Penglai Island by ourselves. If you really think of me as a brother, then don't tell everyone about this. The reason, I'm sure you know. Di Beichun looked at Xiren calmly. They had already made up their minds. No matter what, it couldn't be changed. Xiren looked deeply at Di Beichun and said, "How long can you last after consuming the cold ice sacred lotus?" Chapter 29:12. As Di Beichun's voice fell, Xiren couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. 1 or 2 years. At least the situation is better than I expected. Otherwise, if you go with Hong Zhuang like this, if there's a problem with your physique, wouldn't Hong Zhuang be alone on Penglai Island? This is really too dangerous. Shangwan Ying also frowned. Not to mention that Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying's cultivation would be at the bottom of Penglai Island. Di Beichun's physique was also an unstable factor. Just thinking about it made her feel that there were too many variables. Di Beichun's eyes were deep. This was also the point he was most worried about, and also the reason why he didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to accompany him. However, Bailey Hongzhuang was so insistent. Even if he disagreed, there was no use. I have confidence that there will be no problem. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was firm and confident. Now they had no way out. It was better to be confident in themselves. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude was so firm, when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a sigh, in their hearts they couldn't help but feel happy for Di Beichun. Marrying such a wife was really Di Beichun's great luck. Since you two have made up your minds, then we won't stop you. When Xiren said slowly, after seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying's surprised eyes, he continued, "However, I have a request." "What request?" "My request is very simple. That is, we go together." When Xiren's elegant and handsome face revealed a smile, as bright as the sun gazed at Di Beichun and Shangwan Yingying. Obviously, this was his plan long ago. At the same time, Shangwan Yingying also put away her previous serious expression, and a big smile appeared on her face. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun's faces were full of shock. "What did you say?" Even with Di Beichun's calmness, at this moment after hearing Xiren's words, he couldn't help but raise his tone and ask again. "I said if we want to go, the 4 of us will go together. We are also very interested in Penglai Island. Since we want to explore it, let's explore it together." When Xiren said with a smile, Di Beichun's brows furrowed. "Xiren, Hong, and I have no choice but to go to Penglai Island. Why do you want to get involved in this muddy water?" "How is this muddy water? Is it that everyone who goes to Penglai Island is to go?" "That's not right. I heard that to go to Penglai Island, one must have a cultivation level above the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Could it be that you and Yingying have already broken through to the 5th level of the Purple Realm?" Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiren and Shangwan Yingying suspiciously. The reason why she and Di Beichun were qualified to go was because they had the inheritance of the blood aura field, but how could when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying go? When Xiren smiled slightly, "Since we had decided to go and take a look, naturally we are fully prepared. You don't have to worry. It's too dangerous to go to Penglai Island now. You guys better not go." Di Beichun's face became serious. "I know you treat me as a good brother, so you want to accompany me, but I also treat you as my best brother. I can't watch you guys take risks for me." Xiren's actions made Di Beichun feel a wave of warmth, but he also made up his mind. Chapter 29:13. Seeing that Di Beichen's attitude was so unyielding, Xiren was not surprised. In fact, they had known each other for so long and already had a deep understanding of each other's character. You don't have to be in a hurry to reject me. I've already thought about this matter. Previously, before you woke up, Ying and I returned to the Cloud Sword sect, and I had already made plans to head to the Penglai Island. Now that I see that you've already woken up, this is undoubtedly the best. If we go together, we can take care of each other. Although my strength is still slightly weaker than yours, at least the four of us working together is much stronger than the two of you. If you don't let Ying and me go with you, then we won't watch the two of you take such a risk. As for what decision to make, you two should consider it carefully. Xiren crossed his arms over his chest, his face full of confidence. Immediately, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen fell into a dilemma. They did not expect that Xiren would appear out of nowhere and destroy their original plan. However, when Xiren's actions made them feel a trace of warmth. The matter of you going to the Penglai Island, your father agreed? Di Beichen could not help but ask. This matter was no small matter, and when Xiren was also the young sect master of the Cloud Sword sect. If he left easily, it would have quite a big impact on the Cloud Sword sect. When Xiren nodded, what do you think I went back to the Cloud Sword sect to do? Wasn't it just to discuss with my old man? However, after hearing Xiren's answer, Di Beichen was indeed even more puzzled. Uncle actually agreed to let you two go together? It's not like you haven't seen my old man's character. He feels that young people should go out and adventure. I usually stay in the Cloud Sword sect, but he feels that it's unnecessary to see me. This time, when he heard that I was going to the Penglai Island, he was extremely happy. Xiren helplessly shook his head. His face was filled with emotions. Obviously, under the torment of Sect Master 1, he was extremely helpless. After hearing Di Beichen and Xiren's conversation, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with surprise. She did not know that Xiren's father's character was actually so strange. You don't have to think too much. My old man has been to the Penglai Island before, so he has some understanding of the Penglai Island. The reason why Ying and I dare to go to the Penglai Island, even though our cultivation has not reached the 5th level of the purple gold rank, of course, it's my old man. Since he's already so assured of me, what are you still worried about? So it's more fun. Shangguan Ying's, Ying, Zinging, and Ying, it's more fun. It's to go to it, to go to it. It's to go to the Ying. Ying Penglai's. As young people, how can you not have the slightest bit of drive? If the two of you dare to do this, don't tell me we don't dare. Di Beichen had originally made up his mind to reject Xiren and Ying Penglai, but after knowing that Sect Master 1 had agreed, his attitude gradually changed. Chapter 29:14. You've really thought it through? Of course. When have I, Xiren, ever regretted my decision? My old man said that as long as I can return safely from Penglai Island, my title as young sect leader can be removed. This is his final test for me. Di Beichen was silent for a moment, then nodded. Since you've already thought it through, let's go together. That's more like it. Xiren laughed. Let's go. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Ying walked together at the back. Looking at the two brothers with their arms around each other's shoulders, they couldn't help but smile at each other. Before the sky brightened, the four of them quickly left Limitless Palace. Penglai Island was located at the extreme south of the Saint Continent. Hence, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three headed in that direction. Xiren and Shangguan Ying had already learned a lot about Penglai Island. Hence, they were very confident on their journey. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's departure wasn't immediately discovered. This was because the two of them were always in closed-door cultivation. Mu Lingbing and the rest were very clear about this. In order to break through to purple gold level 5 as soon as possible, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had been cultivating very hard. In fact, it wasn't just the two of them. Si-Tu Yin and the rest were also cultivating very hard. When Mu Lingbing and the rest realized that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had left, it was already 3 days later. When Mu Lingbing realized that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen hadn't appeared for 3 days, she couldn't help but want to remind them not to cultivate too hard. However, When she walked into Bailey Hongzhuang's room, she realized that there was no one in the room. There was only a letter left behind. When Mu Ling Bing saw the letter, she had a bad feeling in her heart. When she opened the letter, her hands couldn't help but tremble. "Mother, when you see this letter, Beichin and I will have already left Limitless Palace. Sorry, we lied to you. Although the effects of the Sacred Frost Lotus are excellent, it can't suppress Beichin's physique for 10 years. Therefore, we only have 1 or 2 years to find those 2 medicinal ingredients. I know you don't want us to take risks for our own good, but at the same time, we don't want you to take such risks for us. Beichin and I have already discussed it. We will set off for Penglai Island on our own. You don't have to worry about us. Although our cultivation is not high enough, we still have a lot of means. I believe that after we reach Penglai Island, we will be able to return safely. I hope you don't come looking for us. Even if you come looking for us, I'm afraid you won't be able to find us. Instead, everyone will have to bear the risk. Whether it is Tiangang Sect, Limitless Palace, or the Lan family, they all need you to take charge. As long as we solve the problem of our physique, we will definitely come back as soon as possible. Forgive us for leaving without saying goodbye. Take care. Hongzhuang." After reading the letter, Mu Lingbing immediately told Lan Yinxiao and the others about the news. When they saw the letter Bailey Hongzhuang left behind, they couldn't help but stare blankly. Their expressions all turned unsightly. "We were too careless. We actually believed Yishuan's words." Lan Yinxiao frowned, his face filled with regret. Chapter 29:15. Mu Lingbing's face was also filled with guilt. "I was too careless. I didn't notice Yishuan's emotions. As Bailey Hongzhuang's mother, she should have paid more attention to Bailey Hongzhuang's situation, but she didn't even notice such an important matter." Seeing that everyone was beginning to blame themselves, Si Tian couldn't help but speak up. "Since Hongzhuang and Beichun deliberately wanted to hide it from us, they definitely wouldn't have revealed any flaws. There's no need for everyone to blame themselves." He had watched Beichun grow up. Not revealing his emotions was an ability that a sect's young sect head should have. Thus, Beichin and Shangguan Yingying would naturally act the most natural when they wanted to deceive them. Although they had been careless, there was no point in haggling over it now that things had developed to this point. I wonder when Yishuan and the others left. Quickly chase after them and take a look. Mu Jin's furrowed her brows. With their cultivation, it's too dangerous for them to head to Penglai Island like this. Mu Lingbing shook her head. "We haven't seen Yishuan and Beichin these past few days. We're not sure when they left either." At this moment, Yu Lin Feng suddenly spoke up. "We haven't seen any traces of Xiren and Shangguan Yingying since 3 days ago. Could it be?" Lan Yinxiao and the rest's expressions changed. "You mean they left together? That's impossible." Mu Jins shook her head. "Yishuan and Beichun do have the qualifications to enter Penglai Island, but Xiren and Shangguan Yingying aren't the inheritors of the Bloodground Abyss, and their cultivations haven't broken through to the 5th level of the Purple Realm. Even if they wanted to go to Penglai Island, they wouldn't be able to do so." "That's right, that shouldn't be possible." However, Si Tian suddenly spoke up. "No, that's very possible." Everyone could not help but look at Situ Yin when they heard that. They did not understand why Situ Yin would suddenly say something like that. The Cloud Sword Sect's sect master went to Penglai Island before, and it said that he went there under the condition of not being at the 5th level of the Purple Realm. As for the specific method, no one knows. Xiren is his son. Maybe he has the same method, Situ Yin said. "Isn't this too risky? Would Sect Master allow Xiren to take such a risk?" Mu Ling Bing didn't understand. Even if Sect Leader had such an experience in the past, it must have been under special circumstances. Xiren was his only son. Why would he allow him to take such risks? Situ Yin shook his head. "You don't know much about Sect Master Wen's character. He's an opportunist. He believes that cultivators should wander around and experience risks. This was the only way to reach a higher level of cultivation. This was the reason why Sect Master rarely encountered bottlenecks in his cultivation over the years. Based on my understanding of him, it's definitely possible for him to allow Xiren to go to Panglai Island. Lan Yunxiao and the others looked at each other and no longer doubted Situ Yin. Among them, Situ Yin was the one who understood Sect Master when situation the most. Since Situ Yin spoke so confidently, it must be close to the truth. Linfeng, how many days has it been since we last saw Xiren and the others? Nangong Wu couldn't help but ask. Chapter 29:16. If that's the case, then they've already gone far. I'm afraid we won't be able to catch up even if we want to. Nangong Wu's expression turned ugly. She really didn't want to see Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun in danger. Their future was uncertain, and it was hard to say whether they could return. Lan Yunxiao and the rest sank into silence. With Di Beichun's group of 4 speed, they had already gone far in 3 days. No matter what, we still have to go and look for them. Lan Yunxiao's voice was heavy, but his eyes were filled with determination and persistence. In the next second, Yu Linfeng and Lan Yunxiao quickly walked down the mountain. Even though they already knew, they were still unwilling to give up hope. Perhaps Di Beichun's group had just left, and they could still find them. Situ, what do you plan to do if we can't find Yishuan and the rest? Mu Jin's turned to look at Situ Yin. Things had already exceeded their expectations, so they needed to carefully consider what to do next. Situ Yan's usually calm face revealed a complicated expression. He looked again at the letter Bailey Hongzhuang left behind. His gaze was distant and calm as he looked at the rising sun. He slowly said, "Perhaps Hongzhuang's decision wasn't wrong. They have their own lives. Perhaps we've underestimated their strength." Mu Jin nodded. Whether it's Yishuan or Di Beichun, they have always had their own opinions. In fact, the two of them have always done things that we old fellows haven't been able to do all these years. Perhaps they will bring us even greater surprises and miracles. Mu Lingbing looked at Situ Yin and Mu Jin in astonishment. "Father, Mother, you mean we're just going to let them go like this?" They've already made their decision. Even if we stop them, they will still go. Since the children have already made up their minds, the only thing we can do as their elders is to support them. Situ Yin sighed faintly. He couldn't help but think of Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang. These 2 children were his pride. He had watched Di Beichun grow up and knew Di Beichun's character very well. Although their cultivation was still lacking, since they dared to go, they must have a certain level of confidence. He believed that God would not mistreat them. Hearing this, Mu Lingbing fell silent, her eyes turning red. She and Hongzhuang had only known each other for a short period of time, and now they were separated again. Most importantly, she did not know if she would have the chance to see her daughter and son-in-law again in the future. Lan Yunxiao and Yu Linfeng went out to search for a long time. When they returned 3 days later, they couldn't help revealing a trace of dejection. "I can't find it." There was no trace of Bailey Hongzhuang's group in the vicinity. There were many routes to Panglai Island. They had no way to confirm which route Bailey Hongzhuang's group had taken, so it was impossible to chase after them. After Lan Yunxiao returned, he planned to pack his luggage. He also wanted to head to Panglai Island to investigate. Perhaps he could find Bailey Hongzhuang's group there. However, Lan Yunxiao was stopped by Situ Yin. There was no need. Since Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 had already set off, if they continued to chase after them, it would just be more people taking the risk. Chapter 29:17. Lan Yunxiao was originally unwilling, but after hearing Situ Yin's words, he remained silent for a long time before finally nodding his head. In his heart, he couldn't help but hope that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun could return safely. Otherwise, he would definitely regret it for the rest of his life. Bailey Hongzhuang's group of 4 headed towards Panglai Island. However, Panglai Island was very far away. Even with their speed, it would inevitably take them a long time. The 4 of them trekked through mountains and rivers. If they had a flying beast, they would ride it. If they didn't, they could only rely on their own strength. Fortunately, the 4 of them weren't spoiled people and were very used to this kind of trekking through mountains and rivers. With the 4 of them traveling together, it was a lot more fun. In the mountain range, Di Beichun and Xiren were catching fish and hunting demonic beasts, respectively. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying were preparing to roast fish and meat later. Fortunately, we brought enough seasoning. Otherwise, if we kept eating dry rations in this mountain range, it would really be tasteless. Shangwan Yingying chuckled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Looking at the blue sky, white clouds, and crystal-clear lake, a trace of a smile appeared on her lips. If we weren't worried about Beichen's health, this trip would really be like a scenic tour. It's very comfortable. With the increase in her cultivation, Bailey Hongzhuang no longer needed to be as careful as before when walking in this mountain range. As long as they didn't encounter the peak demonic beasts in this mountain range, they wouldn't be in any danger. Thus, it was a completely different mentality. That's true. Shangwan Yingying faintly smiled. In the past, whenever we went out to train, it would always be Xiren and Beichen going together. Most of the time, I would stay in the sect to cultivate. At that time, I always wanted to go with Xiren and the others. Although they were covered in wounds, every time they came back, they had also improved a lot. I could feel that not only had their strength improved, but also their spirit and personality had changed. Therefore, I always hoped to have the opportunity to go out with them and train. I thought that there would be no hope for me in this lifetime, but I didn't expect that there would be a chance now. It really makes me happy. Bailey Hongzhuang's dark and clear eyes flashed with surprise. Why didn't you go with them in the past? My cultivation method is more suitable for staying in the sect. Shangwan Yingying sighed, and her pretty face revealed a look of lament. Xiren's father is a cultivation maniac. Every time he takes Xiren to a place to cultivate, it is always very dangerous, unlike Sect Master Situ, who is more peaceful. However, he often communicates with Sect Master Situ, so Xiren and Beichen have always been cultivating with Sect Master Situ during this period of time, and with Xiren's father during this period of time. From Xiren's current appearance, it's really hard to imagine that he spent his childhood like that. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curved into a faint smile. Xiren had always been smiling mischievously, but now it seemed that his serious appearance was very different from usual. Isn't Beichen the same? Shangwan Yingying asked back. That's right. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying were talking, Xiren's voice came from behind. Chapter 29:18. Do I need your help to catch fish? I've already caught it. Beichen slowly walked out of the river, looking at the proud Xiren behind him, his handsome face full of smiles. Seeing that he had nothing to show off, Xiren curled his lips. Whether it's catching fish or birds, I'm good at it. It's a pity that I don't have a chance to show off. Then I'll leave this task to you in the future, so you can perform well. Xiren was stunned. Forget it. I can't take all the limelight. A good brother should share half of it with you. Beichen and Xiren quickly processed the fish and meat, then handed it over to Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying. The two women also began to get busy. Our speed is already quite fast. However, the Shengxian continent is truly not small. At this rate, I'm afraid we'll need another half a month to reach the southernmost region. When Xiren sighed, Beichen nodded slightly. Penglai Island is a place that transcends the Shengxian continent. In order to not be discovered by ordinary people, it should be located so far away. Speaking of which, I'm really curious about what kind of place it is. It's obviously a transcendent existence, but there are so few people who know about it. I've heard some things from my old man. The reason why no one has discovered Penglai Island is because it's a very, very far away island. As long as the average person's brain isn't squeezed by the door, they won't go there. However, Penglai Island is very large. It's not just an island, but a combination of many islands. The largest island is called Penglai Island. My old man was very interested when he found out about the existence of such an existence. He set off in a fit of passion, but his luck is very good. He found some opportunities there, so he hoped that I would go and take a look. So, we still have to travel by water for a while. Beichen said, this section of the waterway is the most important. When Xiren nodded, his expression turning serious. When we were in the Shengxian continent, most of the demonic beasts we encountered were on land. In fact, the number of demonic beasts in the sea is no less than that on land. Plus, Not many people pass through that area, so the number of demonic beasts there is naturally even more astonishing. We don't have much experience at sea, so we need to be extra careful when we pass through that area. My old man specially reminded me of this. Hearing Zyron's words, Bewitching's face flashed with a hint of seriousness. He hadn't thought of this before. Since Sect Master once specially reminded us, it seems that this place is really dangerous. We have to be prepared. In my opinion, the other things are fine. The most important thing is to learn how to swim first. Otherwise, once you encounter a demonic beast in the sea and you're a non-swimmer, it'll be really troublesome. Zyron sighed. In the next second, Bewitching's gaze froze on Zyron's body. Are you talking about yourself? As soon as these words came out, Zyron was also stunned. I don't know how to swim, but I shouldn't be the only one who doesn't know how to swim, right? Chapter 29:19. Seeing the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang, when Zyron was like seeing a life-saving straw, and quickly asked, Hongzhuang, can you swim? The sudden news made Bailey Hongzhuang slightly stunned, then nodded and said, yes, what's wrong? She could swim since she was a child, but she rarely had the opportunity to swim. With Bailey Hongzhuang's voice falling, when Zyron could not help but wail and fall to the ground with a loud bang. Heavens, could it be that the only person in the world who can't swim is me, an extraordinarily handsome man? Seeing when Zyron suddenly say such words, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bewitching in confusion, not understanding what this meant. Shangguan Yingying also looked like she didn't understand. When we go to Palai Island, we have to go through a long waterway, and there are monsters in the sea, so Bewitching looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Hongzhuang with deep meaning. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying immediately understood. If it was just an ordinary sea, even if the cultivator himself was not good at water, there would not be any problem with his cultivation. However, there were monsters in the sea, so the situation was much more complicated. Most of them didn't have much contact with the monsters in the sea, and the information they learned was often learned from the scrolls. However, no matter which book told them the same content, that the monsters in the sea were more dangerous than the monsters on land, because the monsters in the sea had the advantage in the sea. Once encountering a powerful monster, it was definitely not a simple thing to pass through easily. On the contrary, their life may be in danger at any time. Even with their cultivation, they couldn't guarantee their safety because the lifespan of the monsters in the sea was often very long, and Palai Island was uninhabited. The monsters, there were almost no other dangers except for their natural enemies, so whether it was the number or the strength, they were probably very terrifying. Under such circumstances, it would be really bad if they could not swim. So, before we go to Palai Island, there is one more important thing. That is, we have to teach Zyron how to swim, right? Bailey Hongzhuang said with a smile. Shangguan Yingying's face showed a touch of helplessness. I was wondering why I felt that Zyron was a little strange recently. It turns out that he was worried about this. Learning to swim is not a difficult task. I should be able to learn it very quickly. Don't worry. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It's just that we're going to the deep sea, so we have to make use of this time to practice more. However, after hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Bewitching, Shangguan Yingying, and when Zyron all shook their heads. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but wonder, what did I say wrong? If he really learned to swim so easily, he wouldn't have such an expression now. Shangguan Yingying sighed. I really don't know what to do about this. Bewitching pulled Bailey Hongzhuang to sit beside him and said, Zyron is a natural landlubber. He has no problem doing other things, but when it comes to the water, he can't swim at all. When he was young, Yingying and I spent a lot of effort to teach him to swim, but now he is still like this. Chapter 29:20. The river is so shallow, of course I can catch fish. If it's in the sea, then, when Zyron scratched his head, the more he spoke, the more guilty he felt. His voice also became softer and softer. Then what should we do? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but frown. She really didn't expect when Zyron to have such a weakness. After so many years, he still hadn't learned to swim. Perhaps his fear of water wasn't just a little bit. Bewitching patted Xiren's shoulder. Let's find a place where the river is deeper. You should learn to swim well. This time, you really can't escape. Bewitching, why do I have a bad feeling when I hear your words? Bewitching smiled faintly. Don't worry, I'll be very gentle. When he said the word gentle, Bewitching deliberately deepened his tone. However, Xiren couldn't help but shiver. This was definitely not good news. Shangguan couldn't help but chuckle. Bewitching, you don't have to be so polite to Xiren. I think we were too gentle to him in the past. That's why he hasn't been able to learn to swim. This time, let's just be ruthless. Who knows, maybe he'll learn. Ying, why are you so cruel to me? Xiren clutched his chest and looked at Shangguan with heartache. It was as if he couldn't believe that these words had come out of her mouth. Shangguan however, didn't care and continued to eat her grilled fish. We're already very tight on time. You should be ashamed that you've made such a mistake. If we still treat you like we did in the past, who knows how long it'll take you to learn. Hearing this, a serious look appeared in Xiren's eyes. This time, I really have to learn how to swim. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three set off after filling their stomachs. Now, the most important thing for them wasn't to hurry, but to let Xiren learn how to swim. Chapter 29-21. Following that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan occasionally heard Xiren's cries and rejections coming from the pool. However, the three people present ignored him. Bewitching, who had always been calm in the past, after hearing Shangguan and Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestions, he also used an iron fist method on Xiren. He did not allow Xiren to refuse at all. It was as if he wanted to teach Xiren how to swim in the shortest time possible. Although Xiren kept saying that he did not want to learn, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two also understood that this was probably the time when Xiren was most determined. Xiren was bound to go to Penglai Island. Therefore, learning how to swim was also an inevitable hurdle. On this point, Xiren had already made up his mind when he decided to go to Penglai Island. However, he still could not learn after so many years. This knot in his heart was obviously not simple. Although Bewitching and the other two said that they wanted Xiren to learn how to swim as soon as possible, in fact, everyone had enough patience. From the moment they decided to embark on this path together, they were already partners in life and death. No matter what kind of things, they would bear it together. Bewitching taught Xiren how to swim. Shangguan also went to help from time to time. Bailey Hongzhuang cultivated with the three beasties on the shore. When it was time to eat, the three beasties volunteered to go catch prey. The strength of the three of them now was not comparable to ordinary monsters. Moreover, with Baishur, the Beast King, there was no need to worry at all. Xiren, what are you afraid of in the water? Shangguan saw that Xiren had no results after learning for a few days and could not help but frown and mutter. In other aspects, Xiren's learning speed had always been very fast. However, once in the water, Xiren had no ability to learn at all. I don't know either. Xiren's face was bitter, his eyes filled with melancholy and helplessness. My reputation in this lifetime is going to be ruined by swimming. Everyone felt helpless. Originally, everyone thought that Xiren had a knot in his heart because of water, but he was unwilling to say it out loud. However, after some understanding, they realized that Xiren did not have a knot in his heart, but he was afraid of water. Water was Xiren's natural enemy. I don't know if Father asked you to go to Penglai Island on purpose. If you want to go, you must overcome your fear of water. Shangguan sighed. Bewitching patted Xiren's shoulder. These days, they felt very helpless, but the most depressed person was Xiren. Don't be too anxious. We still have plenty of time. Take it slow, and there will be progress. Bailey Hongzhuang also nodded. I believe that you will be able to learn. Don't be anxious. Xiren looked at Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang apologetically. The more they said this, the more embarrassed Xiren felt. If there was no time limit, he naturally did not seem to be anxious. However, Bewitching's body condition still existed, and there was not enough time to begin with. Now that they had not arrived at Penglai Island, They had no idea what might happen on Panglai Island. Chapter 29-22. The reason why Shangwan Yingying was so anxious was also because of this reason. It was simply because she expected better from him. "Don't worry, I will definitely learn it as soon as possible," when Xiren said in a deep voice. His pitch-black and bright eyes were filled with determination. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichun looked at each other and smiled. They both believed that Xiren would definitely be able to overcome this difficulty. At night, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were all working hard to cultivate. Now, they had already replaced sleep with cultivation. Their cultivation was completely at the bottom of the Panglai Island. As long as they could increase their cultivation by a little, it would be extremely good for them. After all, if their cultivation was a little stronger, they would be able to have a little more protection. Originally, Di Beichun and Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation was a little stronger than Xiren and Di Beichun's cultivation. This was because Di Beichun and Shangwan Yingying had absorbed enough energy in the divine pond of ice and snow to successfully step into the purple realm. However, Xiren and Shangwan Yingying were not ordinary people. Before this, they also had a certain amount of opportunities. This time, after they returned to the Cloud Sword sect, their cultivation had once again increased a little. Therefore, the four of them were now at the 3rd level of the Purple Realm. There was still a gap of 2 levels from the 5th level of the Purple Realm. At this level of cultivation, it would take a long time to increase 1 level. However, other than bitterly cultivating, everyone had no other way. They could only try their best to increase their cultivation. The next day, when Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 left their cultivation state, they discovered that when Xiren was actually not with them. The 3 of them looked at each other, and a hint of surprise appeared in their eyes. Turning their gazes, the 3 of them discovered that Xiren had unknowingly started practicing holding his breath in the pond. Obviously, he wanted to suppress his fear of water. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 2 were stunned, but their eyes gradually softened. "Xiren, you're up early." Di Beichun laughed and jumped into the pool. When Xiren smiled faintly, "I don't believe that I can't overcome this obstacle. It will affect my usual image too much." Everyone's heart was slightly moved. They could all see that Xiren was forcing himself. There was a touch of guilt in Shangwan Yingying's eyes, and she couldn't help but murmur, "Hongzhuang, was I too harsh and impatient?" Actually, Xiren didn't want it to be like this. "Xiren knows what you're thinking. He's not a petty person." Bailey Hongzhuang comforted Shangwan Yingying. "Don't worry. This kind of thing has to be done step by step. He hasn't overcome it for so many years. The obstacles in his heart are getting bigger and bigger. Even if he wants to overcome it now, it's not something that can be done in a short time." Shangwan Yingying nodded. "I shouldn't criticize him anymore." Looking at Shangwan Yingying like this, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a hint of smile. Although Shangwan Yingying usually had the image of a tigress that Xiren had described, after interacting with her for a while, she understood that Shangwan Yingying was just a person with a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Although she always said all kinds of bad things about Xiren, she was still thinking about Xiren in her heart. Her heart was very soft, since she could see this point when Xiren naturally had a deeper understanding of this point. "We can only take one step at a time," Di Beichun said in a deep voice. "Stepping onto this sea would be a brand new journey for them. What are you afraid of?" Back then, my old man set off alone without caring about anything. The 4 of us are much more prepared than my old man back then. All these years, my old man always felt that my ability was not enough. I'll take this opportunity to let him understand my true strength. In the next second, when Xiren directly took out a gold-and-silver ship from his chinquan bag. Chapter 29-24. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were immediately attracted by the ship. The material was extraordinary. "Is the hull made of mithril?" Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but ask. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Xiren's eyes lit up and he gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up. I didn't know you were an expert. This mithril is mixed with some deep-sea black gold, which greatly enhances the stability of the hull. The ability to break the waves is also excellent. Such a ship is really a weapon when drifting on the sea. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were full of admiration. Although they had also prepared a ship, it was completely different from the ship that Ziren had taken out. At least, with such a ship, even if they were attacked by demon beasts, they didn't need to worry about the hull being destroyed. It greatly increased their safety. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang see through all the mysteries of the ship, Ziren's eyes flashed with a thick color of surprise. This ship was given to me by my old man before I left. In order to give us a little more protection, what you said is really the same as my old man. Before my old man introduced it, I didn't know that this ship had so many benefits. How did you see it? Ziren's handsome face was full of curiosity. Bailey Hongzhuang's words really surprised him. There are many things that you don't know. My wife's ability is not something that an ordinary person like you can understand. Bewitching joked. Ziren's face fell. You are simply a wife slave. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I have dabbled in inscription techniques, so I have some understanding of these rare metals. Ziren showed a look of understanding. He had long heard that Bailey Hongzhuang was a multi-talented person, and many of her abilities were beyond the scope of understanding. They could only be said to be geniuses in cultivation, but Bailey Hongzhuang was a genius in many aspects. Let's go. Ziren took the lead to step on the ship, and then extended his hand to Shangguan Yingying. Shangguan Yingying also walked on the ship. Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang walked on the ship together, and the three beasts followed behind. The four people and three beasts began their days of drifting on the sea. The sea is boundless. As long as we keep going south, we should be able to reach Penglai Island. Ziren slowly said. In such a sea area, their ship was simply too small. That's right, Penglai Island is at the southernmost part of the Shengxian continent. Bewitching nodded. Ziren and I will be responsible for controlling the direction of the ship. Wife, you and Yingying should have a good rest. Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying both smiled and nodded. When you are tired, it's our turn. Us too. The three beasts were unwilling to be left out. It seems that we have sufficient manpower. Everyone chuckled, and the days of drifting on the sea began. The days of drifting on the sea were undoubtedly extremely boring. They were surrounded by seawater, and there was still no end in sight. There was no village in front of them, and there was no shop behind them. This feeling was really uncomfortable. However, the four of them were cultivators and had long been accustomed to rough days. Therefore, the environment that looked exactly the same every day did not drive them crazy. Chapter 29-25. During this period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had also fought with the demonic beasts. Just as they had expected, the demonic beasts in the sea were very powerful, and their numbers were very large. Once they were entangled with a group of demonic beasts, it would be a huge problem. Even with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's cultivation, they had suffered heavy injuries when they encountered a group of demonic beasts. Fortunately, the hull of the ship was sturdy enough. Otherwise, the demonic beasts would have broken it, and the four situation would have been even more dangerous. On the surface of the sea, once they fought, the demonic beasts would have the upper hand because they could dive into the sea at any time. It could be said that the enemy was in the dark while they were in the light. They had to be vigilant at all times to guard against the enemy's sneak attack. This was undoubtedly very tiring and exhausting. Even with Bailey Hongzhuang and the other threes taking turns to watch over them, it was still an extremely tiring task. There were very few people heading towards Penglai Island. Hence, these demonic beasts had treated Bailey Hongzhuang and the other threes as delicious food and had their eyes fixed on them at all times. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other threes could be said to be transitioning from one demonic beast territory to the next. They were really helpless. As the king of the land, the white lion's aura had a certain effect. However, it was far less effective than when it was in the mountains. On the contrary, once the white lion released its aura, it could easily attract some extremely powerful demonic beasts to compete with it. This caused Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to fall into an even more dangerous situation. It was really frustrating. It seems that we have underestimated the terror of the demonic beasts in the sea. Xiren sighed faintly. Thinking back to when they had just started drifting on the sea, it was still all right and there were not many problems. However, as they gradually went deeper, the demonic beast's powers continued to increase. He could only feel that under the seemingly calm sea, there were countless demonic beasts piled up. He finally understood why only cultivators of the 5th level of the Purple Realm and above could enter Penglai Island. In fact, cultivators who had not reached this level of cultivation would never be able to cross this sea, let alone reach Penglai Island. The number of these demonic beasts is too shocking. Once we encounter a group of demonic beasts, it's like poking a hornet's nest. Just thinking about it makes me scared. Shangguan Yingying shrunk her neck, as if she was thinking about being attacked by a group of demonic beasts a few days ago. If they were on land, even if they encountered a group of monstrous beasts, they still had a way to escape. However, on the surface of the sea, there was really no other way except to barge through. I don't know. How much longer until we reach Penglai Island? Recently, the Yao beasts we encounter are getting stronger and stronger. Thankfully, these powerful Yao beasts do not appear often. Most of them are probably cultivating themselves, otherwise our situation would be much worse. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black eyes flickered with a sigh. She felt that they had finally come into contact with the true power of the Shengxian continent. Ever since she had transmigrated, she had always felt that the Shengxian continent was much weaker than it was 1,000 years ago. But now, it seemed that it was not that the Shengxian continent's power had weakened, but that all the powerhouses had moved to one place. Even though she had yet to reach Penglai Island, she could tell how powerful Penglai Island was from the current situation. Chapter 29-26. Bewitching's handsome and resolute face flashed with a dignified look. With their current strength, if they were to encounter a group of monsters again, it would be really dangerous. Most importantly, as they ventured deeper into the forest, the strength of these demonic beasts continued to increase. The demonic beasts' sneak attacks and ability to hide their auras were not comparable to the demonic beasts they had encountered before. If they were slightly careless and were ambushed, it could attract other underwater monsters. It was no different from poking a hornet's nest. In my opinion, we should upgrade from 1 person to 2 people guarding this place. The Yao beasts here are getting more and more cunning. It's safer this way, when Xiren suggested. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others nodded in agreement. With their cultivation, it was like walking on thin ice. If they were not careful, their lives would be in danger. Thinking about it, even a 5th-level Purple Realm cultivator might lose their life if they were to be surrounded by monsters here. However, in the process of continuous fighting, everyone's combat strength was constantly increasing. During this period of training, the speed of improvement was much faster than cultivating in the sect. Pain and happiness, this must be how it felt. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating when she suddenly heard Shangguan Yingying's exclamation. She couldn't help but open her eyes. Look, there seems to be a boat in front. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look in the direction that Shangguan Yingying was pointing. In fact, they had been drifting on this sea for so long, but they had never seen anyone other than themselves. Sometimes, they even suspected that they were looking in the wrong direction. Otherwise, it would be too strange to not see anyone after drifting on the sea for half a month. Shangguan Yingying's voice couldn't help but give them a lot of hope. Being able to meet someone here at least proved that they were heading in the right direction. Bailey Hongzhuang looked carefully. Sure enough, there was a small boat in the distance. It looked very small in the vast sea, but it was visible at a glance. There really is someone here. Xiren's face showed a touch of surprise. After being here for so long, we finally see other people. It's really not easy. The people here are stronger than us in cultivation. We still don't know if they are friends or enemies. We should be careful. Bewitching was not so optimistic. Instead, his face sank. As Bewitching's voice fell, the smile on Xiren's face also faded a little. He also remembered his old man's reminder before they set off. There were many powerhouses on Punlai Island. Almost everyone had their own trump cards to succeed. It was because they were all powerhouses, the competition was particularly fierce. Compared to the cruelty of Punlai Island, the things that Xiren had experienced in the past were nothing. After arriving at Punlai Island, don't believe everything that anyone says. Otherwise, you will definitely suffer a great loss. As long as we are sure that there are people here, it means that we are heading in the right direction. Then there is no need to worry. In my opinion, we should not have any interaction with the other party and go our own way. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said, "Then let's do that." Chapter 29-27. The boat gradually grew from the size of a sesame seed to the size of tangerine. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could see it more clearly, but they still did not know the situation of the other party. Just then, Baishur wrinkled his nose and said, "There's a strong smell of blood." As soon as these words came out, the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others changed a bit. As a mystical beast, Baishur's nose has always been very sensitive. Since it had said this, it could not be wrong. The smell of blood? Shangguan Ying furrowed her brows as a puzzled look flashed across her pretty little face. Could it be that there's internal strife and they're killing each other? Baishur shook his head. The smell of blood is very strong. If it's only a few people killing each other, there wouldn't be such a strong smell of blood. That means that the other party must be fighting against the mystical beasts. Perhaps they've been attacked by a horde of mystical beasts. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered for a moment before speaking slowly. Hearing this, Baishur nodded and said, "That's very likely. So the other party is in trouble. Being surrounded and attacked by a horde of mystical beasts in a place like this is not a good feeling at all." When Xiren sighed emotionally. If it was possible, he would never want to experience the feeling of running into a horde of mystical beasts again. Then what should we do now? If we continue forward, those mystical beasts might treat us as a team and attack us together. Shangguan Yingying's expression turned ugly. Even though she did not know what kind of mystical beasts they were, she knew that they would not be easy to deal with. However, even if we continue to stay here, once those mystical beasts finish off the fellow on the boat, we'll still be attacked as long as we pass through that area of the sea. When Xiren said in a low voice, based on their understanding during this period of time, they discovered that as long as the smell of blood wafted out, the mystical beasts in the sea would become excited. The chances of them being attacked would also greatly increase. Let's continue to move closer and see the situation before we make a decision. Bewitching's pitch-black eyes flickered with a wise and calm light. They were still uncertain about the situation and could only take one step at a time. "All right," Xiren nodded and continued to steer the small boat forward. As they gradually approached, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others could see the situation in front of them more clearly. As it turned out, there were a total of 2 cultivators on the ship, and they were currently fighting to their heart's content. A thick smell of blood spread out from the 2 of them. The clear seawater nearby had already been dyed red. Even though they were still some distance away, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 could see the terrifying number of demonic beasts. This should be an aquamarine thornfish. Its combat ability is comparable to a cultivator of the first level of the Purple Realm. In addition to the fact that the cultivator's combat ability is restricted by the sea, the aquamarine thornfish's combat ability is comparable to a cultivator of the second level of the Purple Realm. An entire school of aquamarine thorns had appeared here. It was simply too terrifying. When Xiren couldn't help but exclaim, this situation was a little too terrifying. Once he was entangled by the school of aquamarine bramble fish, there was only a slim chance of survival. How did these 2 guys provoke the Shanghai blue thorns? This is too unlucky. Shangguan Yingying sighed. This was simply a nightmare for cultivators. Chapter 29-28. The other party's strength should have just reached Purple Realm level 5. After fighting for so long, they're starting to show signs of fatigue. If this goes on, their lives might be in danger. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the situation not far away and made a judgment. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were looking ahead, the two people who were exhausted from dealing with the aquamarine brambles noticed them approaching. Excitement surfaced on their faces, and they immediately asked Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three for help. "Friends, please help us. These aquamarine brambles love to feed on human flesh. As soon as they discover a human passing by, they'll attack in groups. Why don't we work together to get rid of these aquamarine brambles? It won't be bad for you." The two people looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three anxiously, hoping that Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three could help. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three looked at each other, feeling conflicted. They had some information about the aquamarine brambles, but they only knew about their strength and did not know much about their temperament. In fact, most of what Bailey Hongzhuang and the others knew was the wicked beasts on land. They knew little about the wicked beasts in the deep sea. At this moment, listening to the words of the two people, they didn't know whether it was true or false. However, if they worked together, it would not be too difficult to get rid of these aquamarine brambles. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were not worried about this. Instead, they were worried that once they made a move, their cultivation would be unintentionally exposed. Originally, the four of them had the means to conceal their strength. As long as they did not make a move, others would not be able to determine their cultivation. This was also one of the reasons why they dared to go to Penglai Island. If they could not conceal their aura, they would be no different from sitting ducks on Penglai Island. At this level of cultivation, almost no one would take them seriously. If they wanted to make a move, they could do so as they pleased. Now that the other party was in danger, their attitude towards them was naturally very good. However, once their cultivations were exposed and the threat of the blue thorns fish was gone, they did not know if the other party would have any ill intentions. However, just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three were pondering over this question, they suddenly realized that the bottom of their boat had suffered a heavy blow. Bang! A huge force attacked the bottom of their boat, as if trying to overturn their boat. Not good. The sea blue thorns are still attacking us. Xiren's expression changed. He could see the sea blue thorns underwater through the seawater. Seeing this, Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other and couldn't help but say, "It seems that we have no other choice." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "We can only take one step at a time. Fortunately, there are only two of them." Hearing this, when Xiren and Shangwan Yingying also understood, there were only two of them. Even if their cultivation was at Purple Realm level 5, the four of them might still be able to fight back if they worked together. At this moment, Bewitching said to the other two, "All right, let's work together." The two of them could not help but sigh in relief when they heard Bewitching's words. "That's great." Vigorous origin energy exploded from Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three at the same time. They all took out their weapons and attacked the sea blue thorns underwater. Chapter 29-29. The four of them were only at the third level of the Purple Realm, which was only one level higher than the aquamarine brambles. It wasn't a problem to deal with these aquamarine brambles in a short period of time, but once they were surrounded, they would have to be extra careful. "Don't worry." Xiren raised his head. His handsome and gentle face was full of confidence. Although they were only at the third level of the Purple Realm, as the young sect master of the Cloud Sword sect, his strength was not something an ordinary third level of the Purple Realm could compare to. "Beichun, why don't we compete to see who can kill more aquamarine brambles?" Xiren chuckled. Beichun pierced the aquamarine bramble's body with his sword, then turned around and replied, "Sure." Seeing that the two of them could still hold such a relaxed attitude at this time, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips could not help but reveal a smile. Life was like this. What kind of attitude you use to look at life is what kind of life is like. At a time like this, the three beasts naturally wouldn't fall behind. They were also very good at things like fighting and killing. Although these fishes were very slippery and difficult to catch, it also aroused the competitive spirit in their hearts. Bailey Hongzhuang's colored glass sword pierced the body of an aquamarine bramble and took out the demon crystal in its body. Demon crystals had always been the white lion's food. The demon crystals of the demonic beasts in the sea were mostly sky blue, like sapphires. Under the illumination of the sun, it was very beautiful. However, after Bailey Hongzhuang took out the demon crystal, she unexpectedly discovered that there was actually another thing in the demonic beast's body. After Bailey Hongzhuang took it out, she discovered that it seemed to be a demonic beast's gallbladder, but it was emitting a rich aura of origin energy. This was not among the demonic beasts she had encountered before. It was really strange. What is this? Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. A look of contemplation flashed in her eyes. Could it be that this was something unique to the demonic beasts in the sea? However, this didn't seem right. This was because none of the demonic beasts they had killed before had such a thing. Why was that? With that thought in mind, Bailey Hongzhuang immediately attacked another sea bluethorn fish to find out if all sea bluethorn fish had such a gall in their bodies. When a second bluethorn fish died at the hands of Bailey Hongzhuang, she found a demon crystal and a beast's gallbladder in the body of the other bluethorn fish. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately put the items away. Now was obviously not the time to think about these problems. Getting rid of these bluethorns was the most important thing. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three joined the battle, the pressure on the other two was greatly reduced, and they finally had a chance to catch their breath. However, when the two of them noticed the battle between Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three, a strange look appeared in their eyes. We have to get rid of these sea bluethorn fish as soon as possible. The smell of blood is spreading further and further. If this continues, I'm afraid it will attract other demonic beasts. Bewitching couldn't help but remind them when he saw that the two of them had slowed down after getting a chance to catch their breath. For demonic beasts, there was a clear division of territories. This area obviously belonged to the sea bluethorn fish, so they didn't encounter other demonic beasts. Chapter 29:30. The only thing they could do now was to get rid of these aquamarine brambles as soon as possible and leave this place as soon as possible. That was the safest way. The two nodded after hearing Bewitching's words and replied, "We understand." As the 6 of them and the 3 beasts killed, the number of aquamarine brambles rapidly decreased. After seeing how powerful Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest were, the aquamarine brambles no longer had their previous vigor. Even their attacking speed had decreased a little, as if they no longer had the courage to continue fighting. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. This level of battle was quite taxing on them. If they continued fighting like this, even if they killed all the aquamarine brambles, they would definitely fall into a weakened state. If they were attacked by other monsters at this time, it would undoubtedly be very dangerous. Now that the aquamarine brambles had chosen to retreat, it was undoubtedly for the best. When the first aquamarine bramble chose to retreat, the other aquamarine brambles stopped their attacks and gradually retreated to the bottom of the sea. Let's take this opportunity to leave quickly. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest made a prompt decision and steered the boat forward. The sooner they left this place, the safer they would be. When Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest rowed the boat to the 2 men, they realized that they were cultivators around the age of 30. However, when a cultivator's cultivation reached a certain level, the speed at which their appearance changed would greatly decrease. Therefore, although the 2 men looked to be in their 30s, their real age was very likely to be older than that. When the 2 men saw the appearance of Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, a look of surprise flashed across their eyes. Especially when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangwan Yingying, they were even more stunned. "Thank you for your help. If it weren't for your help, us 2 brothers would have become food for the aquamarine brambles." The older of the 2 men spoke first. He cupped his fist towards Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest with gratitude on his face. "Brother, you don't have to be so courteous. We were just helping out. With your strength, It's only a matter of time before you get rid of these aquamarine brambles, replied Bewitching. I'm sure the four of you are also heading to Punlai Island, right? The man revealed a kind smile. I thought us two brothers were already considered young, but after seeing the four of you, we feel ashamed. They could definitely be called geniuses among cultivators for reaching level 5 Purple Realm at their age. However, when they faced with Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest, they could even be called young and immature. They dare not call themselves geniuses. You're too kind. We are friends when we meet. This place is not far from Punlai Island. I wonder if you can save us until the end and give us a ride? The man spoke rather awkwardly. His expression revealed that he was in a bit of a difficult position. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest noticed that the boat under their feet had started to leak water. The aquamarine bramble's attack was just too powerful. Even if their boat was not made of ordinary materials, it was still unavoidable for them to be destroyed. Chapter 29:31. The two brothers were obviously not stupid. After seeing the expressions of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, they understood what they were thinking and immediately explained. We brothers are not ungrateful people who don't know how to repay kindness. The four of you can rest assured. Presumably, this is your first time going to Punlai Island. There must be a lot of things you don't know about Punlai Island. The two of us can give you an introduction. Relying on friends when going out, isn't this the situation? Bewitching and Xiren thought for a moment, then nodded and said, all right then. They made this choice because they had another concern. The two-man ship was obviously useless. Without a ship on the sea, it was tantamount to a dead end. If they disagreed, they would only force the other party to fight with them. Rather than that, it was better to give the other party a chance. Maybe the other party really did not have any bad intentions. After seeing Bewitching and Xiren agree, the two brothers' faces showed a touch of joy. They thanked them repeatedly. Thank you. Thank you. You are really chivalrous. After the two men stepped on the ship, they looked at the hull and could not help but sigh. I'm afraid the few of you have an extraordinary background. This ship is not ordinary at first glance. Our previous ship was specially made. I didn't expect it to be unable to withstand the destructive power of the aquamarine thorn fish. Xiren smiled faintly and said, I was just lucky to get this ship. I didn't expect it to come in handy here. I'm Gao Hanxia, and this is my brother Gao Hanxiao. May I know your names? Deep Chun, Wenran, Shang Guaning, Lan Yishuan, Bailey Hongzhuang, and the others said their names one by one. This was something they had thought about before. Although Punlai Island did not have much contact with the forces in Shangxian continent, the four of them were quite famous in Shangxian continent. As long as the cultivators who went to Punlai Island later on, it was very likely that they would know their names. Once exposed, it would not be a good thing. It was better to hide a little more. I see. How did the four of you find out about the existence of Punlai Island? Gao Hanxia asked curiously. How did young Master Gao know about Punlai Island? Xiren did not answer Gao Hanxia's question. Instead, he asked a question of his own. To tell you the truth, there is another big brother above me and third brother. His name is Gao Hanshan. His cultivation talent is stronger than mine and third brother's. It was by chance that he came into contact with Punlai Island first. Later on, he sent a message telling third brother and me to set off for Punlai Island after we reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm. The reason why third brother and I were able to reach this level of cultivation was because of my big brother. Otherwise, it would have taken a long time for the two of us to cultivate to this level. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three revealed a look of understanding on their faces, and they had a better impression of Gao Hanxia for being straightforward. I see. In that case, young Master Gao has a big brother to take care of you on Punlai Island. It is undoubtedly excellent. Gao Hanxia nodded and a smile appeared on his face. Yes, but my big brother also told us that Punlai Island is very dangerous. The four of you have to be careful when you go there. Young Master Gao, do you know what this is? Chapter 29:32. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang take out the beast gallbladder, Bewitching and the other two's eyes also lit up. They also discovered this point, and were also very curious in their hearts, but they were busy dealing with the sea, blue thorn fish, and didn't have time to talk about it. Gao Hanxiao saw the thing in Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and couldn't help but smile. It seems that you guys really don't know much about Penglai Island. This thing is called the gallbladder, which is the monster beast gallbladder. Since it's just a monster beast gallbladder, why does it have such a strong aura of origin power? You guys don't know? The Purple Realm is a watershed for both human cultivators and monster beasts. Once you cross into the Purple Realm, it's a completely different realm. As long as the monster beast breaks through to the Purple Realm, the gallbladder in its body will transform into an origin gallbladder, which is condensed from origin power. The function of the origin gallbladder is similar to that of the monster crystal. It's used by the monster beast to condense power, but the monster crystal can often only be used to refine pills or inscription techniques. It's not much help to human cultivators, but this origin gallbladder can help a cultivator improve their cultivation. It's really a good thing. Listening to Gao Hanxia's introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's faces flashed with a touch of surprise. They didn't know that the monster beast would have such a change after breaking through to the Purple Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang secretly sighed in her heart. It seemed that 1,000 years was really enough to change a lot. This monster beast had evolved a lot compared to before. In the past, monster beasts above the Purple Realm didn't have this origin gallbladder, so she was so surprised when she saw it. Young Master Gao, how do we absorb the energy of this origin gallbladder? When Xiren couldn't help but ask. This is very simple. As long as you hold it in your hand and operate the cultivation method, the energy will naturally be absorbed by us. The energy in the origin gallbladder is not as violent as that in the monster crystal, so we can absorb it very well. For us, hunting more monster beasts to obtain the origin gallbladder is also a good thing to improve our cultivation speed. According to my big brother, the reason why Penglai Island was established on an island is because the number of monsters in the sea area is extremely high. The number of monsters that have reached the Purple Realm and above is also much more than in the mountain range. It is the most convenient to obtain the guts here. I see. After listening to young Master Gao's introduction, we have really learned something new, Di Beichun said with a smile. Gao Hanxiao waved his hand. Young Master Di, you are too polite. This is news that everyone on Penglai Island knows. You will naturally know when you reach Penglai Island. I'm just telling you in advance. If it weren't for my big brother introducing us to these things, we would have come to Penglai Island in the dark. From the looks of it, your big brother should have stayed in Penglai Island for quite some time. He knows so much about Penglai Island, Shangwan Yingying said curiously. Currently, they knew very little about Penglai Island. Finally, they met someone who knew about Penglai Island. Naturally, they were eager to know more. Hearing Shangwan Yingying's question, Gao Hanxiao's face showed a touch of pride. My big brother has stayed in Penglai Island for many years. Now, he has a certain amount of power on Penglai Island. The four of you must have gone to Penglai Island to train. However, Penglai Island is very dangerous. If you're interested, you can come with us to find my big brother. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.